you create a secure and connected environment. Before I hand over to Michael Curry, the director at SwitchUp, I just want to draw your attention to the tab at the right-hand side of your screen. Here you see chat. For any support you may need, any sound issues, anything that you may have a requirement for at all, that's a public chat. Please post there, and as the moderator, I'll respond to you directly. The next tab is questions. So we have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation today. If you have any questions at all during the session, please post them there. They are private and they will only be viewed by myself and the presenters. On the next tab, we've got polls. We've got a couple of questions there that the team at SwitchUp would really appreciate your valued feedback. If you can take the time just to respond to those polls, again, they are anonymous and we'd be very grateful for your participation. So without further ado, let's get the session started. And I'd like to introduce you to Michael Curry, who's the director at SwitchUp. Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. Good afternoon, and thank you to everyone for joining us today. Hope everyone's keeping safe and well in this miserable weather and these strange times that we're all living in. As Patricia said, my name is Michael Curry. I'm the sales director here at SwitchShop. Obviously, in an ideal world, we'd love to be meeting you all in person, but hopefully today's session will serve as a good grounding for what we're going to talk about. And if you'd like to discuss anything further on a one-to-one basis moving forward, please don't hesitate to contact any of us that you hear from this afternoon. So just a quick whiz through the agenda. Obviously, I've got a few opening comments to go through. We're then going to move on to discuss with myself and my colleague the challenges that we see in the education market when it comes to LAN and wireless and onboarding devices. Paul from Arubas then going to talk us through the portfolio and how Aruba can benefit your end user experience and you guys as technical managers. And then we have a Q&A session at the end. So please do use that question box to pop them over. If we can't get to those or we can't get through all of those, we'll come back to people individually. So yeah, please don't hesitate to put stuff in there. As I say, the webinar today is fundamentally to discuss the challenges that we see in the education market when it comes to networking, both on the wired and wireless side of things, and how we approach solving those challenges working with great partners like Aruba. There's a broad range of people joining us today, so from primaries, secondaries, multi-academy trusts, colleges, all of whom will have different challenges. They're all going to have different problems. We understand that, but the general principles of what we're going to discuss today, we believe are applicable to all. As I say, I'm joined by my colleague Neil Wilkinson, who is SwitchShop's Technical Services Delivery Manager, and Paul Richards, who is a Solutions Architect with Aruba. As apparent on the agenda, we want to guide you through some of the challenges that we see and how we approach those with Aruba and how we fix them. Paul will talk to you a little bit more about the Aruba experience, important parts of the portfolio, and how to make a happy school, but we'll kick off with looking at things in a slightly broader way. So for those of you who don't know SwitchShop, if you indulge me just for a minute or two, we are a leading value-added reseller in delivering network and security infrastructure solutions. We work heavily across the public sector, education, local government, NHS, but about 70% of our business is working in that education space with schools, academies, colleges, universities. We are, and this is important for us, we are first and foremost a technically led company. Our focus is putting on the right solution with the right customer, and of course we'll factor in things like budgets. We understand that, we live in the real world, but we like to make sure we get the design right and the technical element right and work backwards if we need to meet other challenges that may be standing our way. That's why ultimately we invest heavily in our professional services team and ensuring we are working with the best manufacturers in the industry, like Aruba. That's who we're here with today, and we are one of just a handful of their platinum partners in the UK. Importantly for us, that's testament, not really, well, it's partly our sales position, but not just our sales position. It's how technically capable we are and how we work collaboratively with our customers. That skill set, of course, covers their whole portfolio, from switching and wireless through to their network access control and network management products. Neil, do you want to briefly cover our professional services side of things?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. So as Mike mentioned, we are an Aruba Platinum partner, and as such we've invested heavily in our engineering team. So we've got 14 multi-skilled engineers across a range of disciplines, from LAN, wireless, and then indeed into security as well. We have a particular footprint in HPE server and storage world as well, so we're quite well placed in terms of systems. We have a range of certifications amongst that, from design engineers and professional services and mobility, and also network access control. So there is a whole remit of solutions that Aruba offer. We have amongst us engineers like Dave Crowder, one of our senior Aruba engineers. He's actually what we would call an Aruba ambassador. He works directly with Aruba in terms of that engineering liaison. So we work very closely with them in terms of new features and new solutions. We have a service desk, which also is certified in Aruba technologies, offering first and second line support on all of the products that we supply and install. And in fact, we have a managed service offering, which is also adopting the Aruba portfolio as well. Combined with our project management team, I think we're pretty well placed in terms of engineering and our ability to deliver across verticals. We work in education predominantly. Michael mentioned lots of public sector, but lots of NHS, which is particularly valid at this time, as we know. But yeah, colleges, primary, secondary schools, and many high-profile universities too. So I think we're quite well placed.
Yeah, lovely. Just briefly, a bit more about our relationship with Aruba. You know, we are very careful about who we partner with, who we invest our time and effort with, and most importantly, who we ask our customers to invest their time and effort with. So Aruba demonstrate their position in the market with, you know, ever presence in the top right-hand corner of the Gartner Magic Quadrant in a number of the specialisms that they assess. And they obviously continue to demonstrate themselves as industry leaders with their products, who you can see in their customer base and their general market position. So that's obviously that's us and our relationship with Aruba in a nutshell. So let's move on to some of those challenges that we see in the education space. Neil, do you want to take us through some of these?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've as I mentioned, we've got between us, I mean, many years of engineering, but even with Switchshop, I personally been with Switchshop maybe 10 years. So can base a lot of this on experience in terms of things that we see regularly in education environments. So from left to right, we're regularly experiencing that kind of ad hoc topology that you see both wired and wireless, which is quite often referred to as organic, so where it's grown and evolved on site. And we're quite well placed in terms of understanding how to take a network that looks like that and move it into a more fit for purpose layer 3 network that gives you separation and security. So that's a challenge we see regularly, is taking our aged networks and moving them on.
I think the key thing there as well, it's not just an ad hoc building of different technologies and different products that have sort of fitted in individually in amongst the network as it's grown, but it's also changes in design. So as a network has grown, as Neil says, organically, things get bolted on, and that's not always, people don't always have the chance to consider how that affects the rest of the network. So having that chance to sit down and design things again from scratch and get that design piece right at the beginning is often a big challenge that we come across.
And what quite often what happens is you get the next point, which is the proliferation of devices and in fact density of clients. What happens is they build a service that's designed for X number of clients, and before you know it, you've got Y number of clients, and you've got thousands of devices connected to a network that's not fit for purpose. So that kind of evolution into an enterprise model is what we talk about, because we regard education these days as an enterprise network infrastructure, because the numbers that it supports are comparable to any large organisation anywhere in the UK. So, and consequently, what that knocks onto then is budget. So where we start talking about design and start looking at solutions that are fit for purpose for that kind of enterprise environment, we have a good understanding of what that means in terms of budget, and discussing with non-technical members of the senior leadership team and trying to bring that model across so there's engagement. I speak from experience as an ex-NHS network engineer, and trying to bring technical terms into a clinical environment is very difficult. And it's the same challenge in education. We have it regularly, where we meet with senior leaders of the education side to try and embrace high availability, robust network without technical understanding. So that's a key part of what we do as well. And finally, obviously today, with the current environment that we are all faced with, never before has it been a more critical time for delivering robust home learning and remote access. So a lot of what we do these days is designed to be able to extend it out from the traditional workplace out into the homes, out into the remote sites, to provide, you know, global coverage for education in many respects. And I know that we've been working with Aruba on a lot of that kind of design over the past 12 months.
And just to elaborate that a little further, Neil, is not just about taking the network into the home, but how the network within schools and other organisations is going to need to change come well perhaps now, but from September, October, whenever schools go back, and what social distancing will look like in schools, and how we can use technology and wireless and location tracking and things like that to ensure that schools can best deliver that social distancing element, which is, you know, particularly difficult when you're dealing with 1,500, 2,000 kids running around a school. But what bits and pieces are in the Aruba portfolio to genuinely help with those and make that a little bit easier? Lastly, then, so with density of clients as well. So something from a wireless perspective that often gets overlooked or understated is the number of devices on a school network. A typical office, you might have 10 APs and maybe 10 or 20 devices. But what we're talking about in a school environment is 30 kids at any given moment, all pressing the on button at the same time, all hitting that wireless system, all hitting the back end network.
Whilst also bringing in their own devices from home and their smart devices as well, trying to get on to completely different services at the same time. Absolutely. So that kind of density and separation is very much key to good network design these days.
Yeah, sure. So our approach on how to try and deal with these things. So the first one's really important. We talk about this a lot, is to try and get that message across to schools and colleges, and of course universities. They probably treat themselves as that already, are genuinely enterprise environments when it comes to networking. All too often we hear that we're just a school, or the college doesn't need advanced security or advanced wireless connectivity. And I'm sure everyone on this call can appreciate the scale and complexities of their own environments. But to be clear, networks with thousands of users on them, as we often see in academies or MATs, colleges, they are enterprise-grade environments. And while budgets don't match up with the likes of Barclays and HSBC, they do need careful investment. And that doesn't always mean spending huge money. That means just putting it in the right place. And importantly, and this will be a key theme of what we talk about, is careful design. So the next point there is, one size doesn't fit all. We need to take a consultative approach. We need to understand what you're trying to deliver as a school, how that impacts on what network you put underneath that, what wireless you put underneath that, what other services you need to be delivering, and make sure that you have a solution that's built for you, not a generic solution that you're crammed into. So in understanding what your challenges are as an individual school, because every school is different, or every college is different, and making sure that we can build you something that is bespoke to you, but also has enough commonality so that you can share pains and gripes with other schools that you work with, and make sure there is a support infrastructure between yourselves and everyone else that you come across. The third one there is really, really important. So for us, switching underpins absolutely everything. And it's fundamental to everything we do and everything we talk about. So investment in quality wireless, quality servers, quality storage are all massively important, but without ensuring the switching underneath is of the same grade, you're always going to be inhibited. Switching ultimately is the glue that holds the entire network together. And as we often say, wireless is merely a shortcut to getting onto the wired network. And yes, it's of course vitally important to deliver quality wireless for a great user experience, but that experience will quickly be lost if the network underneath is weak. And as I said before, that doesn't always mean spending huge sums on the most expensive switching you can get your hands on. It's often far more about design and how you approach that implementation. And that ultimately then comes into best practice, which Neil, you're probably best positioned to talk about.
Yeah, so Mike's absolutely right in terms of the network. It is the absolute key part to this. So we always take the network architecture into account whenever we design anything, from firewall installations to wireless installations, network access control, server storage. The network is clearly critical. The way that Switchshop approach, our engineering team have a very clear remit these days. We start at best practice. We always look at best practice. We always look at it from a high performance, high availability, secure model, and work backwards. It's not always achievable to work best practice from day one, but our design generally would adopt a best practice model and work from there. We look at the entire IT service as a holistical unit, so not just a wireless fix and not just a LAN fix, but a kind of holistic all systems approach with integration key to that. So how can we make the wireless network work with the wired network? How can we make the network in general talk to the firewall, and how can the server infrastructure and Active Directory environment enable that? So that's kind of the approach that we take, and our engineers are averse these days of trying to look at the whole piece as a starting point. At that point, having multiple interfaces and multiple places to manage your network is always a challenge. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but we try and look for a simplified management approach where we can do things in the same place. And that kind of ease of management and keeping it simple is a kind of ethos within our environment too. So best practice, keeping it simple where possible.
Super. So going on to the key considerations for any network. So these sort of 4 pillars, if you like, are quite obviously the 4 key components of any LAN. We're not teaching anyone anything new here. But again, it goes back to the bit that holds it all together, which is best practice design, making sure you're getting that right from day one. And if best practice doesn't fit the budget for any reason, is being able to peg that back to something that's still designed well and still can deliver what you need as a school and as any organization, and making sure that you can build on that in the future. So Neil, I don't know if you want to cover some of these, but
yeah, absolutely. So how do we judge what best practice is? Well, the first part of this is to engage the customer and try and work out what the priorities are within the school. It never fails to surprise me how many different priorities there are in education. There's all sorts of different focuses in different schools. Some schools are clearly embracing the concept of bringing devices in from the user base. Others are still absolutely adamant that that's not going to happen. So it's very much about listening to school, looking at a 5-year plan, working out what we're trying to achieve. And then we always start at the core switch. We will look at what that's going to be used for. There's a performance model there for trusted networks that route together, providing a high throughput model. Are we going to use those switches for storage replication as well? So is iSCSI a part of this design as well? So sensible question at that point is key to the choice of your switch. And as Mike mentioned, if you can't, for whatever reason, if that doesn't fit, or whether it's logistically or financially, we will look at providing a solution that gives the key elements of that for in a different model. And then we take that conversation off into the edge, and we look at whether there's a concept for layer 3 routing at the edge, or whether that's overkill and want to just keep it simple at the core. How much do we need to make it resilient? So virtual chassis stacking to provide high availability, high throughput links to give you lots of bandwidth that then will enable your wireless network to drop onto that network at the right throughput. So lots of high throughput clients can join the wireless network at potentially up to a gig per client, and giving you then enough bandwidth to get back to the core to handle that kind of inter-VLAN routing and service off to the secure internet. How do you get those users on? Well, that's where network access control comes in, and the choice of what product you want to use is very much dependent on, again, what you want to try and achieve. There's all sorts of demands here in terms of taking an absolute plethora of different platforms and devices and bringing them onto your network. Do you want to provide a single SSID with a different VLAN per user? Do you want to be able to deliver an SSL certificate so that you can decrypt that traffic in terms of content filtering from a safety perspective, so that your students are safe? Do you want to provide a guest portal with limited bandwidth? So all those kind of design pieces are fundamental to the choice of the whole product. And then we would design the VLAN topology and the security topology with all of that in mind. And it might be that actually from a NAC point of view, you can do a lot of that without a product. You know, you might be able to utilize your wireless and your edge choice and your core choice to do that for you. But if you've got a particular advanced requirement, there may be a good reason why a NAC product will be useful for you at that stage. So yeah, we'll try and take it all as a single system, I think is the logic here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, fundamentally then that's where Aruba come in from our perspective. So, you know, without wanting to step on Paul's toes in a minute, you know, we were able to use Aruba's broad portfolio to deliver a truly end-to-end enterprise environment and a truly integrated approach with visibility across every appliance, including the LAN, the wireless, using NAC tools if we've invested in them, as Neil said, to try and get visibility of those devices. And I know that's something Paul's going to cover at the end, where we've got that proliferation of devices and we don't always know what's on our network with bring your own device and people bringing in from homes and just trying to plug them in. All quite important, and as we talked about a little bit earlier, having those broad management options, whether it's, you know, from a wireless perspective, we're going controllerless, or we have an on-premise controller, whether we want to go cloud, and taking all of those options and putting them together in the right package for the right school. Different schools are going to have different requirements, and making sure that we can use the broad array of what Aruba have got at their fingertips and what they've developed, and making sure that we're taking the right bits of that portfolio and giving it to the right people. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Paul, and he'll run you through the Aruba experience. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Michael and Neil. Thank you for inviting me to come along today, and thanks everyone for coming along and lending us some of your time. My name is Paul Richards. I work for Aruba. And I work in the channel team supporting our partners as a solution engineer. So I'm just going to chat to you quickly today about what we see from our customers within the education space. Run through just particular points from within the portfolio that I thought are particularly pertinent to education. So this isn't here's everything that's on our shopping trolley. This is particularly relevant to anybody in education, and just how we kind of put all that together to hopefully help you put together a kind of learning environment and a school that teachers want to teach in and students want to learn in. I can see there's already some questions coming in on the questions board, so keep them coming in. We'll do a bit of a Q&A at the end, so yeah, please do fire any questions you've got. So what do we see? Partly, luckily for me, I've got a little bit of a background in education, working as a behavioural specialist in schools myself, as well as doing a bit of work in IT in schools many years ago. My wife is a teacher, and one of my best friends works in IT in a school in Oxfordshire. So I've been asking them a lot, especially more recently, about their challenges, about the worries that schools, that students have. And again, chatting to my own 3 children who are in school as well. So when we talk to teachers and the kind of things that they think about, they're thinking about how to manage behaviour in the classroom is a big one. And, you know, if things don't work properly, regardless of what that is, kids get bored very quickly, so we need to keep them on task. They want to be able to create the most engaging learning environment possible. Teachers teach because they love learning and they love to get kids enthused about learning. And they want to use more than just the classroom. You know, a school, a college is potentially a large campus with lots and lots of opportunity to mix up learning and make it really interesting. So teachers want to be able to have that kind of freedom to use their imagination and get out and teach. Students like things to be as easy as it is at home, regardless of what it is we're talking about. They want their learning to be easy. They want their learning to be fun and engaging. They want to be interested during the day. They don't want downtime to get bored, and they need the structure of a lesson time. And they want their experience, especially online, to be risk-free. They don't want to have to face the worries of bullying around being targeted online, so they need protecting and they need to feel that they're safe. The experience from a school perspective is all about safeguarding to begin with. We need to make sure that everybody, from the students to their data to teachers and school data, being safe and protecting their reputation. They want to be able to drive the aspirations of the school and to differentiate themselves amongst local schools or other schools within the country, to drive the best teachers that can deliver the best learning within their school. From an operational experience, from talking to people working in IT, you want to be able to inspire confidence in people who are connecting devices and learning platforms. So we want to inspire confidence that they're going to work so that people can actually use them, because if they don't work, they don't get used, and then we've wasted budget. We want an infrastructure to be secure. We want it to be transparent. We need to be able to see everything that's being connected. We need to be able to understand what it's doing, what it's trying to do. We need to dictate what it can do. And at the same time, we want to be able to allow IT to contribute towards the aspirations of the school and help drive the achievements and the achievements of the students, and the freedom for the teachers to be able to deliver those engaging lessons. So how we translate that, for a teacher, the technology just needs to work. It needs to be simple. They need to be able to use whatever kind of device works best for them to be able to deliver their learning. They don't want to be dictated to about the kind of devices that they use. The answer from IT should really be yes. And they want the freedom to be able to get out and explore the campus. From a student perspective, stuff should just happen. They shouldn't have to worry about making things work. As soon as they do, they get bored, they switch off, and they want to engage in something else. They want their teachers to be happy. You know, when my kids' teachers are having a bad day, the kids know about it, and that rubs off on their learning experience and their ability to be able to engage and get involved. And again, we want to remove that fear of bullying, fear of being targeted online. From a school perspective, we need to make sure that everything's secure, but also that technology doesn't distract from the learning experience. This has got to be, you know, all part and parcel of the learning experience. IT needs to sit in the background. Most IT staff will know that their happiest times is when nobody's talking about IT, because nobody says things are brilliant, but people will soon let you know when things aren't. The school wants to be able to give that freedom to the staff to be able to innovate and to create exciting lessons. From an operations perspective, we want stuff to be really simple to set up, quick and easy, simple to manage, you know, not too many different types of management to bounce between in order to be able to keep the lights on. We want to be able to find everything on the network and make sure that it's secure. And we want to be able to give that freedom of choice to all of our users about the types of devices that they use, what they use them for, and importantly, where they use them. So we're going to have a quick look at the portfolio now and just see kind of how what we've got can help to address some of those things. So again, I'm not going to go through speeds and things. You know, most people who are developing networks nowadays make them quite fast, so I'm sure you're aware of that. So hopefully we'll just pull out some things that are unique to Aruba, and will help you in your decisions in the future. So we talked about the core being important, and switching is a big part of that core. We need to make sure that our infrastructure that sits behind our wireless that the devices are connecting to is able to cope with the traffic that's going through it. So the latest range of Aruba switching is specifically designed for that and designed to work within a campus environment. We've got a long legacy of providing networking to schools and educational establishments, and we, from going to the BET show many years in a row, initially as a customer and also as part of a vendor, it's great to hear the feedback from customers about the amount of years that they've had kit working in their cabinets, which is great to hear. So we develop our own ASIC, which means that we can be very, very flexible as to how we design our switching and the programming behind them. We can keep our platforms incredibly programmable and flexible to our customers' needs. Dynamic segmentation from a security perspective is really, really important. The fact that we can take not just our wireless traffic, but also our wired traffic, and put that through our wireless security and give exactly the same experience to wired users and devices as we do with our wired clients. You know, let's not forget that they need securing too. Our switches have machine learning and analytics built into them, so they're able to actually watch the traffic that's flowing through themselves, look for issues, and actually recommend resolutions. If we've noticed that there's a particular problem with a certain type of traffic going through the network, the switches can find out if there's been a recent configuration change on the network and offer up solutions to be able to resolve those issues itself, even or implement them automatically. Smart rates are a critical technology for the latest Wi-Fi standards, so that you don't get a bottleneck from a transportation of traffic perspective around the network. So smart rate gives us that multi-gig capability, where we can give greater than gigabit throughput through to our access points and enable that aggregation of data. Limited lifetime warranty is the last thing that I really wanted to mention. Not having to maintain costly support contracts for your wired network is absolutely key to a lot of our customers. Not just can it help with lowering the cost of implementation of kit, but also just being able to not have to manage multiple support contracts, be aware of when they're ending, worry about whether or not you're going to be able to get the latest version of firmware because you've got an outstanding support contract that isn't valid. We don't worry about that sort of stuff. All of our switching from the core of the network out to the edge comes with limited lifetime warranty, and that means you can get all the firmware updates you need as and when you need them for as long as you own that kit. And if, we hope it doesn't, if it does break, we'll replace it for you. Simple as that. So from a Wi-Fi perspective, again, you know, we really worry about security here and reliability. Flexibility and simplicity are key when we're looking at putting these solutions together. So I guess the first thing to point out really is that we're architecturally agnostic. We're not interested in dictating to you how you put a network together. So if you want that network to be controllerless and it's a smaller environment, you don't need the complexity of having support contracts, of having subscription models. You don't need it. Likewise, if you want to be able to run a large campus with controller-based networks, deep granular control, then absolutely we can do that, and we can overlay cloud management or on-premise management with a single range of access points. So we're not going to force you to go down A road or B road, depending on the type of implementation. We're the first vendor to be fully certified for Wi-Fi 6. We've got a full range of Wi-Fi 6 compatible access points, also backwards compatible as well. Whether you're looking at indoor or outdoor implementations, again, it's a single range of access points. Whether you're looking at cloud-based management or you need a controllerless or controller-based model, we can offer everything that you need. Our built-in security is absolutely vital. So being able to, right at the edge of the network, where the point that the users are connecting, be able to offer an application firewall built into the access point so that it can make its own firewalling decisions for both web filtering and app filtering and management as well. AirPass, as 5G comes into play, is absolutely key in helping to onboard users from 5G remote networks roaming through onto the Wi-Fi network so that you have full control of it. And Client Match is a unique for Aruba. This helps with removing this sticky client syndrome that we get, especially in large campuses where devices will pick up the first access point they see and then hold on to that for dear life until eventually the experience degrades to the point that the device drops off the Wi-Fi, has to reconfigure and find a new access point to connect to. Client Match takes that decision-making process and turns it on its head. The access points are aware of the clients and the other APs that are around them. And if another AP can offer you a better service than you currently have, then we'll force you to roam onto that other AP. So wherever you are on that campus, wherever you're moving around, we'll make sure that you get the best possible user experience. WPA3 is a great uplift in security. And the real benefit here is on open networks where we encrypt users' traffic, even on open networks, and also with onboarding the more and more IoT-based devices that we have within schools and within colleges, as we want to be able to connect more kit in labs, then we need to be able to onboard them securely and easily, and WPA3 really helps with that. Role-based access is essential within a multi-user, multi-device campus. What we do here is we just take a mindset approach to understanding who the user is, the type of device they're using, the time and date they're connecting, and also where they are. And then we use that along with our application firewalls to be able to isolate users and their traffic, and give them the best possible user experience, but also limit that experience to exactly what's needed at that time in that location. Always on Wi-Fi just comes down to when we're doing things like upgrades on the network. You don't have to worry about when you run that upgrade. We'll always make sure that the upgrade happens by only pulling down access points to upgrade their firmware after we've moved users off onto another access point. And also, if for whatever reason we have to reboot a controller or even a switch, that we can actually keep the power running so that actual devices don't lose their power, that they stay connected. Likewise, we don't require any support contracts with our access points, even the outdoor ones. They all come with limited lifetime warranty, which works the same way as the switching. So this just shows, it's supposed to be a building slide, which I think is a bit difficult to run through on here, but this shows you how Aruba Instant works. So I said we've got that freedom of choice between whether we run controllerless or controller-based networks, and this is a controllerless network. So it uses what we call Aruba Instant. So an access point over on the left will fire up, and the first thing it's going to do is it's going to ask two questions. One is, can I see the Aruba Activate service? And Aruba Activate is how we run zero-touch provisioning. So is there a config stored somewhere that I can download and automatically configure myself? If it can't see that, then it's going to look for a controller somewhere on the network, either a virtual controller from another instant access point or a mobility controller from a campus network perspective. If it doesn't see either of those, then it's going to fire up its own services as a virtual controller itself. So it will fire up the application firewall, all the web filtering services, DHCP, a radius server, and all the tools that we have to help our clients. Then you configure your network very easily within what we call the Aruba Instant GUI. So it runs through a wizard, which is just what you're going to call your network. How do you want users to connect to it? What are the rules for their usage? And then that's it, the network's set up. Every time you plug in from an access point to there, we put in a sensible limit of about 128 access points. Every access point is going to download a copy of that configuration so that they can all make their own forwarding decisions. They also all have the ability to become virtual controllers. So if for whatever reason someone knocks the virtual controller AP off a wall, it doesn't matter. The other APs are actually autonomous in their decision making. They just take that virtual controller as a point of management for the network, and they're all able to run themselves and also become the virtual controller so they can take over the network. Again, that includes outdoor APs. And we can also do a limited amount of wireless meshing on there as well. So if you need to fire up an access point very quickly, then you can do that without necessarily having to run a cable to it. You plug it into some power, and it will boot up and it will join the network and extend your wireless network for you. So that's Aruba Instant, very simple, and it's just a case of just buying the access points. No subscriptions needed. There's no clever stuff built into this other than what's running on the access points themselves. Going to a larger campus, here we're looking at bringing in mobility controllers, where the access point again boots up and it says, can I find Activate for a config? If can't find that, it will look for a controller. And in this example, we actually have a mobility controller running, and these can either be physical or virtual controllers. With this perspective, our access points are effectively dumb, and they pour all the traffic through the controller, where the controller has that greater level of power and deeper, more granular control for larger environments, and also is infinitely extendable to much larger environments where 128 APs just isn't enough. So a lot of larger secondary schools will have a solution that looks similar to this. We can then also add in our switching. So this means that we can port user traffic through the wireless controllers and apply wireless level controls to the wired traffic. We can set up remote sites if they're needing as well. So we can put mobility controllers into remote sites and run those from there. And then a particularly key one for the moment is around home users, where you can just take an access point home, plug it into your broadband router, and it will fire up and it will display your school SSIDs, networks. You can even plug in PoE devices to be able to power it up from the access point from home, and it will give you that work-like experience from home. So it's a great way of working from a larger campus perspective. So as you can see from those two scenarios, we don't mind whether a controllerless or a controller-based network works best for you. We can do both. From a management perspective, again, we're not going to dictate to you how you manage your network. You may be perfectly happy having a very, very simple network that you don't want to tinker with all the time. You just want to know that it's up and running. And Aruba Instant is exactly that. It's free of charge. It's built into, it's the GUI that's built into the access points. Everything's wizard driven, but you still get full access to be able to see all the application data of everything that's running on the network. Aruba Central is our cloud management piece, and that is gives you much deeper visibility as to what's happening on the network. It's a subscription model. Usefully at the moment is it gives you the ability to be able to obviously manage your network both wired and wireless remotely, and also remote sites as well. It has a managed service capability. So if your school has another school that you've taken under its wing, or if you get your network provided to you as a service, we can do this via the cloud, and you get a window to be able to see exactly what's going on your network. Guest access here is absolutely key with Aruba Central. We have a really rich guest experience where visitors that are visiting a school can onboard themselves, so we understand exactly who they are, and we can even do sponsored guest access. There's just an extra layer of security that means that we can provide that guest with a visitor to the school with their own unique username and password, but their credentials won't work until the person that they're visiting has clicked a box to say, yes, I know who this person is, and I allow them onto the network. So that only people who we want to register for guest access can actually have it. Aruba Airwave is our on-premise management piece, so where you have a very large campus network that may be multi-vendor, then Aruba Airwave helps us with that, providing that deep visibility of everything that's happening on our users, even where our users are within the physical buildings themselves. I was just going to share my screen very quickly so you can have a quick look at Aruba Central and have a quick look at kind of what it does and what it looks like. So I'll just give you a very, very quick run over of that. Hopefully you can see my screen. Here you can see the kind of the front page of Aruba Central, and this is actually looking at a public demo site that anybody can access. So you can access this. You can just do a quick Google search for Aruba Central demo, and it will bring you to a front page where you just type in your details, click on connect, and it will link you into this so you can see this in real time. So let's have a quick look at one of our offices in the US. So immediately as I come in, I can see the amount of clients that are connected onto my network, and I can look at that over the past few hours out to 3 months worth of data. I can also importantly see straight away, as a network engineer is quite important, my changelog. So I can see who's made changes on the network and when. I can find out what devices on my network are down, so if I've got any issues, and I can look at my network utilization. So it's a really, really nice quick view of the network as soon as I connect. From a summary perspective, this tells me a little bit more about how my network is being used and the busiest areas of my network. And this helps again with network design. As time goes by, you might need to make changes, and Aruba Central is going to help you with that. We can also see who the busiest clients are on the network as well. From a connectivity perspective, this is where I can see how well people are actually able to use the network. So I can see the association and authentication successes onto the network, and I can start to see where maybe there are some issues that I need to delve into and have a look at. WAN perspective, if you are setting up local remote sites and you want to be able to manage the WAN in there as well, that's also going to help you with that. The next thing that I really wanted to have a quick look at was the application visibility. This is key for anybody working in a multi-user environment where you're using lots of apps. We want to be able to see what's being used on the network. So thanks to our application firewall, we can actually drill down and find out exactly what's being used on the network. So you can see on this campus, obviously this is a corporate office, so therefore YouTube is top of the pick for the amount of traffic that's running through on the network. But I can see everything that's going onto the network. I can also see how the web traffic is also running on our network as well. Then from a guest perspective, this is something that's going to help with how our campus is being used, how many people are actually on our campus. And we can lay this out in a number of different ways to help around really basic troubleshooting to do with who is using the building and how my buildings are being used, how people are able to use buildings better around social distancing piece. So I'll just stop sharing my screen there. And that is just a very quick run around Aruba Central. So ClearPass Device Insight is a really, really important piece of our portfolio. You can't begin to protect students and your data on the network if you don't understand what's being connected. So ClearPass Device Insight is a fantastic new tool for Aruba that we've developed that goes out across your network, finds every single device that's connected. It doesn't just use traditional fingerprinting technologies. Actually, this uses real kind of machine learning to look at devices, understand their behavior, and then figure out what kind of device they are. But not everything is a known Samsung mobile device. We've got CCTV cameras that could be developed within the similar factories, but shipped out to different companies. And more in educational environments, we've got IoT devices which have virtually no security on them whatsoever, that are built to a price point, that are being plugged onto the network. We don't fully understand what's there. So ClearPass Device Insight looks for everything on the network, fingerprints it and looks at its behavior, looks at a worldwide database of everything that's being connected, and even uses crowdsourcing technologies to be able to figure out what other people are using, how their devices are working, and see if we can link together information to provide more information to each other. Once you understand everything that's connected to the network, then we can bring on our gateway, our bouncer to the network, ClearPass Policy Manager. So this is a vendor agnostic network access control application that approves everything that's connected onto the network. This helps us to create that zero trust approach to an infrastructure. So if you connect to a network, you have no rights, no access to anything whatsoever until we understand who you are, kind of device you've got, where you are on the campus and the time and date, and then we can apply dynamic policies to you that say, well, given everything I understand about you and the type of device that you're using, I can give you access to X, Y, and Z resources. But as you roam around the campus or pick up new devices and connect to the network on those, then we can dynamically change and improve your user experience depending on how you're working. So it's absolutely key for, again, a multi-user, multi-device, and now multi-vendor campus to be able to do this across anybody's network. So even if you're not running Aruba wired and wireless infrastructure, we can help secure you. Role-based access, this is how we do that in reality. So this is about taking our infrastructure, your existing security devices, firewalls, MDM, pulling all of that together so that when we connect users and devices, we can make sure that they have access to all the resources they need, but only the resources that we need, and that we protect them and also we protect ourselves from them. User experience insight is just about how we assure our users that everything is okay and assure ourselves that everything's okay. Again, this is vendor agnostic. This can sit on top of anybody's network. So you take these little devices and you stick them up on walls or you put them underneath desks where people sit. So these are not access points, these are sensors, and they mimic a user's behavior. So we can give our UXI sensors a bunch of jobs to do, which would mimic what a student or a teacher would do, and we can send it off running, and it will go off and it will do its work, and then it will come back and it will report to us and tell us how well things are using. I'll very, very quickly show you how that works. So here's my user experience window, and you can see I've got a sad face. A happy face means everything's great. A sad face means we might have a problem. So I can go into my sad face, find out the sensor that has an issue with that, and this is the sensor running in my home office. And I can see that I've got a web service that isn't running. So I know that this web service is actually my NAS device, which is powered off at the moment. So therefore it's throwing up an error. And I can dive into that and start to pull out much more information as to what might be causing that problem and how I can fix it. So often you will hear the issue from your users as the network's down, the Wi-Fi isn't working. That doesn't really help us troubleshoot problems. So UXI can see it again across anybody's network, go out and test any number of services, tell us how well they're working, and we can troubleshoot those and resolve them, possibly before the users even know that there could be an issue. So just summing up from me, for us, everything is about user experience. Our company motto internally is customer first, customer last. Everything we do is about trying to create a better experience for people who just need to get their stuff done. So from a teacher experience, we try to help make sure that the classroom is a calm place, that they know that students are secure, and that they're free to go out and roam the campus and provide the most engaging possible learning experiences. For students, they know that they're enabled to engage in their learning. They know that they feel safe and that they can really enjoy their lessons. From a school experience, they know that safeguarding is built into everything that we touch. That students are driven to and excited to achieve and do better for themselves, and that teachers are really free to innovate and how to create that differentiation for their school. From an operational experience, IT wins when operations are absolutely seamless, that things work easily and they just work. That they give us all the information that we need to understand that any threats are under control and risks are mitigated, and that their IT team and department and the kit that they bring into the school enables learning within the school. And that's it from me. Thank you all for your time. If anyone wants to close off.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks very much, Paul. Yeah, really good overview of that broad portfolio that we were talking about there, and some new products that have been around for the last year or two amongst the Aruba portfolio. Things like UXI and CPDI that are proving extremely popular with our customer base and especially in schools. So hopefully an insight into some of those if you've not seen them before. Yeah, thank you for joining us today. We've got a Q&A session now. Before we move on to that, just to draw your attention to an offer that we're going to be running. You'll see in an email that will come out as a follow-up to this. So you'll get a voucher code. Details of that offer are in the email, so please do take a look. Give us a shout if that offer is of interest to you, and we'd love to try and help you with that a little further. Patricia, are you going to run through the questions, or would you like to move?
I am indeed, Michael. We've got a good few questions. I'm just mindful of the time. So we have 5 minutes. We'll try and get through as many as we can, and then as you committed to at the beginning of the session, we will respond to people directly afterwards. First question to you, Michael. I have a limited budget. What would you say is the most crucial area to spend money if I only upgrade one piece of my network?
Yeah, great question. It's one we get asked an awful lot, and it's something myself and Neil touched on earlier. I would say, and hopefully Neil, you agree, and Paul yourself as well, is that the core switch for us is the crucial thing to get right. Obviously, it's nice to have a good quality edge and the wireless and all the other great things that Paul talked about as well. But fundamentally, all of that data, all of those packets are going to go in and out of that core switch at some point. So making sure that the design there is right, that the configuration is right, and that you've got the right hardware, and it covers some of those key points that we talked about in terms of not just performance now, but scalability, making sure if the school grows that your network can grow with it, and ensuring that you're getting the right level of functionality out of that, and that it's configured properly from day one, with and allowing you to make those flexible changes moving forward.
Yeah, the choice of that switch is really important in terms of, like I mentioned earlier, about convergence. So ensuring that if you're going to decide to put your storage through it as a SCSI service through your core switch, and making sure that's the right switch for that job, because that can be a huge impact on performance. So yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Okay, great. And to that point, I suppose this nicely just leads into the next question, Michael. With budgets as tight as they are, does SwitchShop offer any financing options?
Again, yes, we work closely with HPE and Aruba. They have a very competitive financing division, I suppose. Especially for schools, that's often at 0%, and can be run over 3 years, and we can include other factors like installation and support costs in there as well. So absolutely, if budget is a problem now and the school is open to leasing or financing options, and I know that some aren't, and that's we understand that, but those who are, please do talk to us about that. We've got plenty of options up our sleeve that we can
Interestingly, I've been chatting to one of our HPFS guys earlier on this morning about what they've been doing in schools, and they've even been offering our customer deferred payments, so you're able to crack on, get those important projects done, and then worrying about starting to pay for it later on. So we can do deferred payments for like 3 months.
Lovely.
Great. And to you, Neil, my wireless network is small at the moment, but it's growing. Can I use one method of deployment now and another later?
Yeah, so when you talk about method deployment, I guess I'd just like to understand a little bit more about what you mean by that. But obviously there are different ways of discovering your network. So for example, Paul touched on Aruba Instant. So there is an also deployment model with Activate, which lets you kind of self-provision your hardware, and then that could be dropped into an instant cluster, a controllerless cluster, which can be very scalable up to 128 APs. But then, yes, absolutely, those same APs can then be migrated into a controller-based model that lets you have a more advanced security controller-based solution as well. So it's completely flexible, and it's not a rip and replace action at all. It's completely scalable.
Great. To you, Paul, our final question. We've got through it all with 2 minutes to go. Do you have to have an Aruba end-to-end to make some of the features, to make use of some of the features?
Absolutely not. It totally depends on what we're talking about from a feature perspective. But when you look at things like Aruba ClearPass, if you want to be able to secure your users and your devices connected to the network, in actual fact, 50% of Aruba customers only buy ClearPass to secure their existing other vendors' networks. CPDI can work on any network, and the UXI sensors, regardless of the vendor that you're choosing to use, can help you either assure your users that their network is working fine. We lose out on a sale, boohoo. But more importantly, if there are issues on the network, then we can help you discover those regardless of the vendor that you're using. So no, absolutely not. You don't have to be Aruba end-to-end in order to be able to make use of some of the clever features that can add value to you.
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing out at this point that, like Paul said, actually we've got lots and lots of customers where we do a complete mixture of vendors in terms of this solution. So whether that's Aruba and HP mix, or with some other vendors, and indeed other wireless products that plug into Aruba LAN with ClearPass on the outside. So yeah, there's all sorts of mixes that we're quite used to doing, and I think that's testament to the product that they're very interoperable.
Great. Well, I'm going to hand over to you, Michael. That's us through all of our questions on this afternoon session. So I want to hand over to you just to wish everybody a good afternoon and close it out.
Yeah, thank you. Spot on exactly that. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. I think Paul said it. Thank you for lending us our time, which I think everyone's very busy at the moment, and we're all having to work in difficult circumstances. So taking the time to join us is much appreciated. As I said, please do keep an eye on your inbox. There is an offer coming out to you. I think there was another question from Jason saying, is this been recorded? If you've not been able to join us for all of it today, or you'd like to share any of this with your colleagues or management teams to try and share some some of the ideas that we've discussed, there will be an on-demand version of this available. So please feel free to download that and share that with whoever you see fit. Yep, thank you for taking the time, and please stay safe, and hope to speak to you all on a more individual basis soon.